Hello and welcome back to the channel, where we make up our own rules for every game we play, and today we're going to talk about how we play Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a game that gives you so much freedom. You're free to go wherever you want and make whatever kind of character you want. You're even free to remake that character if you change your mind about them later.
Respec.
Oh, you right. It's a game that gives you a lot of tools to succeed, and it wants you to use all of them. The lands between might be a harsh and dangerous place, but everything you need is provided to you right there. You can be anything. So when my friends and I decided to start our very own Elden Ring playthrough together, we looked at this freedom to be anything we needed to be and said, nah, fuck that. Let's make up our own weird rules and limitations. And you know I'm all about that. So that's what we did for the whole campaign. My build, I can't have any spells.
Oh, no
That's my
spells?
plan. 0 spells. I can have like weapon arts.
Okay.
So 0 spells for me, and you are pacifist. Let's see
Yes.
how. I like
can't
imposing restrictions on ourselves. Oh, also
That would be more fun.
I also can't use Rivers of Blood or Moonveil Blade. Okay, that's cheating.
So I can't hurt anything. Not killing. I can't even attack anything. Right?
If you want to go that route, that sounds good. I think that's fair.
Okay.
I played a warrior who wasn't allowed to use any magic, and I had to pick up every weapon I found, and every time I picked up a weapon, it had to become a part of my inventory. I don't know if the Claymore's gonna help me.
Oh, you want this chest, big boy? You want the Claymore in this chest, big boy? You're gonna get that Claymore, big boy. You can do it. Oh, you're so close.
So I'd have to get rid of a weapon or shield in order to equip the new one that I found. I could still upgrade my weapons, but it meant that all 6 of my slots were always filled, and I always had to be getting rid of something old for something new, and since I wasn't allowed to use magic, these weapons were how I was creating my build. At the end, I ended up with a build where all my different weapons were applying different, bleeds and poisons and things like that, and I did spend most of my time using my giant pizza cutter. Other than me, though, one of us could only use magic, but he built his character to be a tough, damage-soaking tank. Also, one of us played a rogue who only has access to consumables and a hunting knife for gathering materials to craft those consumables. And the very last one of us was the dedicated healer, a pacifist who wouldn't deal any damage whatsoever, well, most of the time. One thing I forgot to mention, by the way, none of us were allowed to use red flasks at all. That's right, no healing from the Flask of Crimson Tears. At least we all had plenty of blue flasks. Must have been nice for the magic users. You might be wondering, why did we do all this? Why put these restrictions on ourselves? Why stick to these made-up rules even while Commander Nile was kicking our ass?
Listen.
When is it my turn, Nile? When is it my turn? Over and over again. No!
Why can't I just heal you when you're dead? Why isn't that a thing?
This is so possible.
I believe it
so
is. I
incredibly-
legitimately believe it is. And over and over and over again.
Be gone. I thought if I said be gone, he would be
Yeah, you thought he would leave if he said be gone enough.
gone. I thought that was the rules.
Them's the rules. Why do we make our game so weird? Why am I telling you this instead of my therapist? Well, I'm glad you asked, because almost all of these questions will be answered in this video. But to answer them, we're gonna have to go back, all the way back, way back, to the beginning of everything. In 1972, the Magnavox Odyssey was released in North America as the first home video game console. The Magnavox would pave the way for future titles such as Elden Ring. But to understand the Magnavox Odyssey, we have to understand the story of the father of video games, Ralph H. Baer. Baer was born in Germany in 1922, and would unfortunately pass away 8 years before the release of Elden Ring, so we never got to see it. But to help us understand his full story, let me give you just a little bit more context. So, way back in the day, there was one continent, right? Called Pangaea, right? Well, before too long, it started getting a little bit spicy, and
2,000 years later.
all of that brings us back to Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a dark fantasy action RPG from the studio that made Dark Souls, From Software. Like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, it's known for its brutal difficulty, but also for making itself more accessible to new players in many ways. Elden Ring is also much, much bigger than the average Dark Souls game, embracing the open world exploration trend while putting its own unique spin on it. There's actually a cool, obscure channel called It's Not Good, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, that put out a video about this a while back. It's about how Elden Ring's open world design is so damn good. You could check out that guy's video after this one, if you feel like it. But what we're here to talk about today is what players do in that open world and how they choose to engage or not engage in the game's systems. When a game like Elden Ring comes out, the first few days are the most exciting part, because the world is new and fresh to everyone. No one's got everything figured out yet, so every player is just making discoveries and making things up as they go. The game always encourages experimentation and creativity, but never more so than at the beginning of its life. But inevitably, usually within a few days of the game's release, someone does have it all figured out. A meta of sorts, or the strongest gear, strategies, and choices emerge for Elden Ring, just like in every other game like it, and it's really hard not to look them up and try and use them for your own playthroughs. However, this doesn't mean the creative experimentation comes to an end. Instead, it just has to evolve. There's always more to discover, more to mess around with, more possibilities to find previously unknown tricks or exploits, but some players keep exploring in the opposite direction. Instead of looking for the most optimal or most powerful way to play, they look at new ways to challenge themselves as much as possible. If you're familiar with communities around Dark Souls and Elden Ring, you might have already heard of challenge runs. Maybe you've seen Otzdavra defeat every Dark Souls 2 boss without taking any hits.
That crown down! It's ours now!
Or the hour and 15-minute video of Ramanchi 5 killing Millennia while taking no hits and wielding no weapons.
Unarmed.
These are just a couple examples of incredible challenges that some players are willing to endure and overcome just because they can. Of course, the other side of this coin is a handful of elitists insisting that you aren't really beating the game unless you're beating it with no magic, no summons, no flasks, no shields, no clothes, no weapons, no opening your eyes, no touching the controller, and so on. But really, there's no wrong way to play the game, and a brutal challenge run completed for its own sake is always impressive. It's all about what you want out of your experience with the game. The playthrough I streamed with my friends is kind of like a challenge run, but there are a few important differences. For one thing, we didn't choose to apply our own rules just to make the game more difficult. It did increase the difficulty in some ways, for sure, but that wasn't our main intention. After all, there are plenty of ways we could have made things even harder for ourselves. It also wasn't a super strict, formal challenge run from start to finish. We were sort of making up the rules as we went along, and we even broke our own rules from time to time. Another unique feature that kind of set us apart from most challenge runs is one key thing, and it's that none of us are really good at this game. So why did we do it? What exactly were these weird made-up rules, and who are the lads between? So the lads between are the 4 characters we played in our Elden Ring Special Rules campaign. Each of us designed our own rules and restrictions around specific RPG archetypes. This meant that each of us played a specific role in the group, a lot like characters in a D&D party. Most of our made-up rules only applied to one member of the party, but some rules did apply to everyone. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the rules was that none of us could use red flasks, meaning that we had to heal ourselves in other ways, mostly through our physic flasks or our dedicated healer. We also didn't use any spirit ashes, but we did summon some NPCs for fun from time to time. I should also mention that none of this would have been possible without the seamless co-op mod for Elden Ring. It's a cool and very free mod.
Guys, it's a free mod. Free mod.
It is free mod, that's right.
Free mod.
Free mod, though. That lets you play a continuous multiplayer game with very little hassle. No more having to constantly resummon your friends after figuring out where the game allows you to summon them. Just bring them into your world and explore anywhere you want. You can even enable PvP. You're not okay mode.
I've never
You need to
been
see a
okay.
doctor
That's my
mode.
secret.
It's a fantastic mod, and I highly recommend it. I'm sure it affected the difficulty of our game, but everything scales to the number of players in this mod, and it didn't diminish the challenge or fun for us at all. Anyway, let's go ahead and meet the lads, starting with... So I was the Honorable Warrior. I was pretty much just a normal warrior in our group, basic archetype, but my rules were kind of built around what I could and couldn't do.
My character was Tall Lady. He was a mage shield maiden, and I would gather all aggro, or I would try to gather all aggro by dealing as much damage as possible and mitigating that with my fancy shield.
My character is Saint Wumbo, the healer, cleric, and technically pacifist of the group.
Me, I'm Pika Better Name. And this was a voice I did not keep up with after probably episode 5. I was our ranger / rogue / investment broker.
I couldn't use spells at all because my backstory was that I hated mages because they killed my parents or something like that. And so that's why I couldn't use magic, and I hated people who used magic. Some of my other rules were that I couldn't have a HUD, so I couldn't see how much HP or stamina I had. If an enemy hit me, I had to fight it until either I died or it died, so I couldn't run away. I couldn't backstab anything, although you'll notice in the footage I definitely have. And then whenever I picked up a weapon, I had to immediately equip it. And so I had to fill up all 6 of my weapon slots, like, just by wandering around the world. I could keep older weapons in my stash that I wanted to use, but at all times I had to have that all 6 slots fully filled up, and every time I picked up a new weapon or something, I would have to equip it into one of those slots, meaning I'd have to get rid of something else. So it was very challenging trying to juggle like status effects I wanted them to have and the upgrades for them. So I spent a lot of time upgrading, like buying smithing stones and having to upgrade new weapons whenever I wanted to use them. And the main hindrance was that it caused me to be encumbered really often.
Cool items.
Guys,
What is it?
guys,
Oh.
it's
Oh, there's a
okay.
guy.
I can fight. I would have to, only sometimes would I even get to wear armor because the weight load would be too much and I wouldn't be able to roll. Other restrictions that I had, those were some of the main ones for my character. So I would say of all the characters, my character probably had it the easiest. Obviously I had to fight things up close and I couldn't use ranged weapons and I couldn't use spells and all that, but I still had less restrictions than some of the other people did.
I could only use magic. I could I had to have a shield of some sort. I'm pretty sure that was it.
My main rule is that I can almost never deal damage. Since we can't use red flasks to heal, my job is to constantly cast healing spells in the middle of combat to keep my friends alive. However, there are 2 situations where I'm allowed to deal damage. I can freely attack the undead for cleric reasons, but I can also occasionally enter an enlightened state of being that the Bible calls Echo mode. If every other member of the party dies in battle, the gloves come off and the robes come off, and I do my best to finish the boss myself with varying degrees of success. I also can't wear armor, and most importantly, I can never harm a turtle, especially not the turtle. I could never forgive myself.
My main restriction was that I can only fight from range. So my entire arsenal includes bows, knives, and pots, and I guess also throwing rocks, although I don't think I threw one other than episode 1. I don't like to get up close in combat, because that puts my body and my wallet in danger. Because if I ever drop my runes, the first thing I have to prioritize is getting back to them. Also, most bosses are poor, and I want to stay away from that, because if it rubs off on me, it's bad for investment.
I chose to make this character because when we first started out, there weren't any of these rules. It was just me and Quentin playing together, and I wanted to just play a melee-focused character, and so that's why I was I wanted to play a melee-focused character because my original playthrough I did a lot of magic, and I wanted to veer away from an intelligence build, and I wanted to be more of a strength and dexterity build, and that's how I got into where I started out, because I started out with like a katana or something like that. And I wanted to play through what that was like and focus on having to dodge, having to be up close instead of getting to use spells from afar, since I had already done that before. And I would say I had more fun than vanilla for a couple of interesting reasons. One, I loved not being able to use red flasks. I think that the red flasks, not having to use them, was very, very interesting. Where we had to find our healer and be like, okay, please heal me or I'm gonna die. Very cool, very fun to not have as many like essentially lives per se that you could run through. And I liked having to change weapons rapidly. And by the end of our playthrough, I had sort of a system built in where I was, doing certain Ashes of War and attaching certain types of damage so I could get the most out of the different weapons that I had and make the most of the full inventory. I'd have a shield, and then I would have double-handed weapons where I wanted to two, what is it? I don't know what it's called, where you have two weapons of the same type and they have a new move set. I wanted to be able to do that, and then I would have other heavy weapons that would hit for certain status effects. So really, really cool the way the build encouraged me to use all those weapon slots instead of just having them be kind of a hindrance. To be fair, there is a weapon I used more than any of the other ones, and that was the pizza cutter. But even then, I do have other weapons I'm using and I'm switching between to get their buffs, to get their status effects, to get what I need. The pizza cutter just was my main damage dealer. So very, very cool experience. I liked it a lot. If there's anything I didn't like, it's not that I didn't like something. I actually really loved playing without a HUD too, because it was, you know, dangerous. I was a dangerous guy. I loved not knowing any of that. Also made things visually very appealing. One thing I think is that I think my build was the least, like, unique out of everyone's, where I didn't make full use of restrictions as well as maybe some of the others did. Quentin, Christian, and Eric all have very unique things saying, hey, you can't use this part of the game, so make do with what you have. And for me, what I was limited to was the main thing that you use in the game anyway. So it was, well, it was a limitation, it wasn't the most limiting. And I think I could have had maybe just one more layer. I think that's the main reason why I went with no HUD, was so that I would have an extra layer that I didn't feel like I had enough of. But yeah.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't think they did work out completely well, because I had to be backline and frontline at the same time.
Good
but
answer.
Hey, because I never play magic characters in Souls games, and this would be my first just ever arcane intellect character at all. I mean, it's kind of the meme that everyone says. It was a lot easier, I'm gonna say, because, I mean, you're not getting in there, you're not getting hit, at least a lot.
I ended up taking on the healer role after I made a faith character, because I'd never made one before. I enjoy playing healers and non-violent characters in all kinds of games, and I liked the idea of being a pure healer in Elden Ring. We were afraid it might get repetitive, but it was surprisingly fun and an interesting way to play. Focusing on dodging and timing heals could be tricky, and sicko mode made for some interesting opportunities to mix things up every now and then, but I think I had more fun playing Saint Wumbo than I've had playing any vanilla character.
Just kind of staying at a distance for a ranger sort of build. There was a lot of chances I got where I basically got to stand back with Quentin in the back line. I don't know, keep tabs on him a little bit and try to stay close, which I tried to do up until I stopped trying to do that. Overall, just being able to provide support from a distance. Status effects were a big deal for quite a while and still are. Having somebody who's mainly consumables based, just fighting from a distance. I feel like I always just kind of run with one single weapon, and throughout this playthrough I tried to try out every other bow that I could find, aside from great bows, because they're just kind of annoying and I don't like their wind up. I get their niche place, but aside from that, the only, like, I guess, because you also asked about issues, the only, like, issues that I had during it was ammo consumption, because at the start of the game, it is not easy to farm for arrows, or pot materials, or, like, anything. After late game, a lot of those become, like, infinitely purchasable, but Aeonian butterflies, a lot of status effect stuff is not easy to get, and is not purchasable in some cases. A lot of the time, I did have to break out my trusty hunting knife, which filled in for a lot of non-boss fights after about halfway through the campaign, just because I needed to conserve ammo for when we got to the bosses after a lot of the crawls.
So yeah, that's how we played through our whole campaign. We would hit a wall sometimes, and Melania seems pretty impossible for us to beat like this, because whenever you have multiple players in there, each of her hits on each player, even if they're blocking, are going to heal her, and they heal her in a scaling fashion because we're playing multiplayer. So we would get her down super low, and then just like one waterfowl dance or whatever would fully heal her. It was pretty impossible. So we were not able to beat her. We defeated every other boss, and we got through every area, and we finished the game, and we made it to Shell City, and we beat the Cyclops, and we rode the Hasselhoff, and we brought the crown back! And you can watch it all on the archive streams or edited down versions on our second channel, but it still doesn't answer why we did it this way, huh? Why are we like this? Why would we want to do this to ourselves? Well, the answer is, I don't know. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. But really though, we did just do it for the fun. Like, this isn't the first time that I've applied my own rules to another game, and it definitely will not be the last. This is a really interesting way to play through Elden Ring, and one of the reasons I love the game so much is that goofy stuff like this is very easy to pull off with just a little bit of imagination. If you've seen some of the other, videos on my channel recently, you'll see me taking a game and making my own rules for it, right? Like the magic videos. And that's kind of just something I want to do going forward with games that I play, is just make up my own rules, play them with my friends, and have a good time. Our special rules campaign was weird, but Elden Ring itself is just kind of weird, just like Dark Souls is weird, and it encourages you to be weird at every opportunity. There are so many different builds and playstyles and so many different ways to combine them. There's poison, there's sleep, there's throwing pots, there's a trumpet that blows explosive bubbles, there are swords bigger than your character, there are flasks that blow you up, there are spells that are insanely powerful, there are spells that look really cool but don't do anything, and there are spells that actually do nothing. And the DLC has added even more options to mess around with. Sure, some options might be less powerful or viable than others, but that's kind of the point. Trying things out, creating a character that has texture, making something work as best you can because you just want it to work so bad. Those bumps and flaws and weird options are a big part of what makes FromSoft games great. Freedom makes room for creativity. And in these games, you kind of hit a point where it doesn't matter how good or powerful the thing you're doing is, you just want to make it work. And I think that this playthrough is all about that, right? Particularly when you look at builds like our rogue, who had to use consumables as their main source of damage, which is something I don't really see very often. He was using pots and throwing knives and crossbows and bows and all of those things. It's really cool to see a character build solely around those things. I really, really enjoyed that. Getting creative and goofy in a game like this might seem strange, but you'd be surprised. Dark Souls, and to a lesser extent Elden Ring, has a reputation for being, well, dark. They're supposed to be difficult, intimidating games set in bleak, dying worlds full of horrors beyond comprehension, And to an extent, that is accurate. But for every tragic NPC death or merciless boss fight, there's something as silly as a wholesome big tortoise wearing a Pope hat, or some weird encounter that's more funny than frustrating. It's something, though.
Oh, jeez.
I
Losers.
never knew you could do that.
Losers. The worlds from FromSoft games are sad and desolate, but they always have a sense of humor to balance out this gloom. With less care and imagination, Elden Ring could have been a standard dark fantasy. The mages didn't have to wear stones on their head. They didn't have to be a village of talking jars who love flowers, and Rykard didn't have to be my uncle. In the same vein, we didn't have to play through Elden Ring in this weird way that we did, but we did anyway, and the experience was way better for it. In both their extra difficulty and their goofiness, our characters felt like they really belonged in that world, but role-playing and adhering to the game's lore wasn't the point. What matters is the story of this insane playthrough that'll stick with us for a long time. We didn't torture ourselves by taking on a super difficult challenge run, but we also didn't make it as easy as possible with optimized builds. We just found a pretty fun sweet spot right in the middle. No wonder they call us the lads between, am I right? Ew, that kind of makes us sound like centrist. Never mind, I take it all back. So what comes next? Well, I just want to say thank you for watching all the way to the end. It was a pretty short video, nothing too crazy in here, but I just wanted to talk about this fun adventure we had with playing Elden Ring in a weird way. But also, I kind of want to use this as a jumping off point for the future of the way that we do this channel. Our campaign through the main game might be over, but we did recently start playing the DLC, so if you catch us on stream, you will see us playing through the DLC with the same characters, same rules, same everything, so keep an eye out for more Elden Ring streams, but also expect to see more content like this coming your way. I'm really interested in this concept of applying extra rules and restrictions to games. So it looks like, honestly, that's going to become the theme of this channel moving forward. I'm going to explore ways to customize games, way to play games within games, that kind of thing. I hope you're looking forward to more of this stuff because, well, that's what you're going to get. Oh, and last one thing, please feel free to take inspiration from this video and start your own weird Elden Ring playthroughs. Use some of our rules, all of them, none of them, your own rules, make up whatever you want, any combination of those, anything you want. Elden Ring really does give you that kind of freedom, but weirdly enough, giving yourself restrictions like this can add a lot of depth to the game and make it feel fresh, feel new again, almost like you're playing it for the first time. So go crazy, have fun, make whatever kind of builds you think would be really cool and fun. And please, big thing here, tell us about it in the comments. There's really no wrong way to do this as long as you're having fun and keeping Elden Ring weird. Nothing's off limits, nothing's too much. As our beloved Turtle Pope says,
heresy is not native to the world. It is but a contrivance. All things can be conjoined.